It is Friday, the 13th of February, 2026. And, if you have a superstitious bone in your body, that date feels a little too on the nose for the story we're about to tell.
It really does, because just yesterday, Thursday the 12th, a set of heavy doors swung open at the Botkin Hospital in Moscow.
And out walked Adam Kadyrov.
Or maybe he was wheeled out. It sort of depends on which Telegram channel you believe, and honestly, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
He's 18 years old, the Crown Prince of Chechnya, the designated heir to Ramzan. And while you can bet the official cameras were flashing, trying to capture this moment of, triumph or recovery.
The silence behind the scenes was absolutely deafening.
Because Adam isn't just a teenager recovering from a pretty horrific car accident. In the world we're diving into today, he is the linchpin. He's the central piece of a 20-year geopolitical project that is, right now, dangling by a single fraying thread.
It's the classic butterfly effect, isn't it?
Complete.
Except, instead of a butterfly flapping its wings, it's a luxury SUV running a red light in Grozny. And the hurricane it's causing isn't in the weather.
No.
It's brewing in the corridors of power from Moscow to London to Washington.
Exactly. We are looking at a document today, a source file that's just labeled Adam.pdf. And it argues this isn't just some tabloid story about a reckless rich kid.
Far from it.
This is a story about how one single moment of, negligence, arrogance, on January 16th might have shattered the entire Kadyrov brand forever.
And when that brand shatters, it leaves a vacuum. The source argues we're looking at a potential power vacuum in the Caucasus that global powers, which the document refers to as the gardeners, are already rushing to fill.
The gardeners, we'll get into what that means, but the stakes here are, they're incredibly high. We aren't just talking about who gets to sit in the big chair in Grozny.
No, this is way beyond that. The document lays out a scenario for a potential third Chechen war, for the destabilization of the entire Russian Federation.
And a fundamental shift in how these global powers manage what the source calls the Russian perimeter.
It's huge.
So our mission today is to connect these dots. We need to go from the absolute micro,
A missing spleen,
a damaged eye, a broken jaw,
to the absolute macro. A clash between what our source calls the London and American factions who are, it argues, playing a game for control of the entire region.
It sounds like a spy novel, I know. But when you start to look at the medical data, the political maneuvering, the PR failures,
Yeah.
it all starts to look terrifyingly plausible.
It's the story of a broken prince and the sharks that started circling the exact moment the airbag deployed.
So let's start at ground zero, the crash itself. January 16, 2026, Grozny. What do we actually know about what happened? Because the initial reports were, well, let's be charitable and say foggy.
Foggy is the polite diplomatic term.
Right.
The initial reports were a deliberate smokescreen, a total whitewash. But the source material we have, it seems to cut right through that. And here's the reality it lays out. It was a high-speed motorcade.
We've all seen the videos of how these guys drive. It's not just getting from A to B.
No, it's a performance. It's a dominance display. They own the road, they own the city, and they want you to know it. They don't stop for anything.
So laws of traffic don't apply. The laws of physics still do.
Until they don't. The motorcade just blew through a red light at a major intersection. No hesitation. And the impact, well, the source describes it as catastrophic.
And there was collateral damage.
Terrible collateral damage. The driver of the other vehicle was killed instantly. That alone gives you a sense of the kinetic energy we're talking about here. Just an immense force.
And inside Adam's vehicle.
The damage was also incredibly severe. His close friend and personal guard, a man named Mizan Kaimov, reportedly took the brunt of the impact.
And his condition.
He suffered a massive traumatic brain injury. The prognosis there is, it's grim. The document suggests he's facing permanent paralysis.
Which is just an awful tragedy in its own right. But for the purposes of this deep dive, the political focus immediately snaps to Adam.
Of course.
And this is where we really need to slow down and parse the medical details. The source calls this the physical integrity problem. And we're not talking about a cast on a leg or a few stitches here.
No, this is systemic, life-altering trauma. The source lists 3 primary categories of injury. First, a severe jaw fracture.
Okay.
Second, significant damage to the optic nerve in one eye. And third, and this is maybe the most critical piece for his long-term viability as a leader, the rupture and subsequent removal of his spleen.
Let's unpack that. The spleen. Why does that matter so much? I mean, plenty of people live without spleens. In a Western context, if a CEO or a senator loses their spleen, They take a few weeks off, maybe get some extra vaccine.
And they're back at their desk.
Right, they're back at work. Why does our source flag this as a potentially regime-ending injury?
Because Adam Kadyrov isn't a CEO, and he's certainly not a senator sitting in a climate-controlled office. He is, or I should say, he was supposed to be a warlord in training, the leader of a warrior society.
And the spleen is key to that.
The spleen is a critical part of your immune system. It filters your blood. It's your first line of defense against certain types of encapsulated bacteria. Without it, you are permanently, chronically immunocompromised.
So he's fragile.
So he's a glass cannon.
Hmm?
Think about the lifestyle of a Chechen leader. It's not Zoom calls and board meetings.
No.
It's inspecting muddy trenches. It's embracing hundreds, maybe thousands of soldiers and petitioners. It's constantly being in crowds. It's living in a region where, let's be honest, sanitary standards aren't exactly Swiss.
The common cold for someone else.
For someone without a spleen, a common infection can spiral into overwhelming sepsis in a matter of hours. He effectively has to live in a bubble for the rest of his life.
And you can't exactly project strength and vitality if you're living in a bubble.
You can't. You cannot project warrior vitality if you're constantly on antibiotics and legitimately afraid of someone sneezing near you. It just doesn't work.
And then you stack the other injuries on top of that.
Exactly. The jaw fracture means he's been on a liquid or soft food diet for over a month now. He's lost a significant amount of weight. The source says the latest images show him looking gaunt, hollowed out.
Not exactly the image of a young lion.
Not at all. And the optic nerve, this is another huge one. If he loses significant sight in one eye, he loses depth perception.
Which means?
He can't shoot accurately. He can't drive properly. He can't judge distance in a fight. All the things that are central to the Chechen male ideal, to the warrior image, they become difficult or impossible.
This all ties into a concept the source keeps bringing up. Baraka. Can you explain that?
Yes, this is absolutely crucial. We have to put on our anthropologist hats for a minute here. In the archaic political culture of the North Caucasus, and again, archaic is the source's term for a traditionalist, warrior-centric society, the leader must be physically whole.
It's almost medieval, isn't it? The idea of the king's body representing the health of the entire kingdom.
It is exactly that. It's the Fisher King myth brought to life in the 21st century. Baraka is this concept of grace, of luck, of divine favor. A leader who is physically maimed, especially in a stupid preventable accident like running a red light.
It's not just bad luck.
It's seen as a sign that he has lost his baraka. It's not just that he's disabled, it's that God has withdrawn his protection. The thinking is, if this prince couldn't even protect himself from a traffic intersection in his own capital city, how can he possibly protect the clan from the Russians, or the Americans,
Sure.
or anyone else?
That is a brutal, brutal standard. But it explains the absolute panic we saw from the Kadyrov administration in the days after the crash.
The failed PR campaign, exactly. They knew immediately how bad this looked, so their first instinct was to just gaslight the entire republic.
Deny and deflect.
They started releasing these videos, footage of Adam looking strong, visiting troops, firing weapons, trying to project this image of business as usual.
But we live in the age of digital forensics.
We do. And people on the internet, they're smart. They started checking the metadata on these video files, and they saw the dates were old, weeks, months old. The whole thing backfired spectacularly.
So it made them look weak and deceptive.
And deceptive in a really clumsy, amateurish way, which is almost worse. It signals that they're not even good at lying anymore. And now, the recent footage, the genuine stuff from his discharge yesterday, it confirms everyone's worst fears.
The visual contrast.
The contrast is stark. He looks thin. He looks vacant. The Warrior Adam brand, the image of this invincible MMA fighter that they spent years and millions of dollars building.
It died on that dashboard.
It's gone, shattered.
So we have a broken prince. But this isn't just a family tragedy. It's a full-blown political crisis. And that brings us to segment 2, the collapse of the dynasty protocol. Because Ramzan Kadyrov has been planning this transition for a long, long time.
For a decade, at least. And you have to understand the context of Ramzan himself. There have been persistent, credible rumors about his own health.
The kidney issues.
Severe kidney issues, yes. You see him in videos, and he's visibly swollen. He looks puffy. Then he disappears for weeks at a time, allegedly for treatment in Moscow or the Emirates. He knows he's on borrowed time.
So he needs an off-ramp.
He needs an off-ramp. He needs to hand the keys to the kingdom to someone he trusts implicitly, so he can either retire to a federal post or, frankly, just survive. And Adam was that plan.
And usually, in any kind of dynasty, you have backups. You don't put all your chips on one number. The source talks about fail-safes.
Right. A system like this, a durable one, should have redundancy built in. The source lays out 3 traditional fail-safes that should have worked here but didn't.
Okay, let's go through them. Fail-safe number 1.
Fail-safe number 1 is simply many sons. It's the most basic one. Ramzan has a lot of kids, so the logical question you might ask is, okay, Adam is broken. Why not just swap in his brother Akhmat? Or Eli? Or one of the others?
It seems like the obvious move, right? Just change the heir apparent.
It does seem obvious, but that ignores the concept of symbolic capital. Think of it like a brand launch for a new iPhone. Ramzan has spent millions of dollars and thousands of hours marketing Adam.
It was always Adam.
Adam was the one who was supposedly sending messages from the front lines in Ukraine. Adam was the one who was filmed beating that prisoner in the SEO. A horrific act to us, but for the internal audience, it was a calculated initiation ritual, a way to show his toughness.
It was a coronation happening in slow motion for years.
Exactly. Every medal, every public appearance was part of the Adam Project. If Ramzan suddenly pivots to another brother, he is publicly admitting that the entire project was a failure, that he backed the wrong horse.
It signals panic.
It signals panic and poor judgment to the other elites. It weakens Ramzan himself, so he's trapped by the sunk cost fallacy.
Okay, so failsafe number 1 is compromised. What about failsafe number 2? The source calls it the ladder.
This is the traditional Caucasian way of doing things. Seniority. If the leader dies or is incapacitated, power doesn't automatically go to his young son. It goes to his oldest male relative, his brother, or his oldest cousin.
Which provides stability.
It provides immense stability because you get an experienced adult taking over and not a teenager who doesn't know what he's doing.
But Ramzan doesn't want that.
Ramzan has spent his entire 20-year rule systematically destroying that system. He doesn't want a traditional clan structure. He wants a vertical monarchy.
Father to son.
Father to son.
Yeah.
Like the Kims in North Korea or the Assads in Syria. That's the model. If he's now forced to pass power to a brother or cousin, he's admitting that his direct line is weak, that his grand monarchical project has failed. It undermines the very foundation of the personal autocracy he built.
He wants a dynasty, not a clan rotation.
Precisely. And that brings us to the third failsafe, which is the clan itself, the type.
The type, this is the big one.
This is maybe the biggest misconception that outsiders have about Chechnya. We have this image of it as a clan democracy. We picture a council of elders sitting on rugs, smoking pipes, making decisions collectively.
The source argues that's a complete fantasy.
It's dead. Ramzan killed it. He dismantled all the traditional checks and balances of the type system to consolidate absolute power in his own hands and his immediate family.
He atomized the opposition.
He atomized it. He co-opted some, exiled others, killed the rest. Modern Chechnya isn't a democracy of clans. It's a personal dictatorship that uses the language of clans. So now, when the dictator at the top starts to weaken,
The clan doesn't rally to save him.
why would they? He spent 20 years stepping on their necks. The structure is incredibly brittle. It looks strong from the outside, but it's hollow. Without the strong man, the type doesn't unite. It fragments into rival gangs and factions.
Which leads to the lame duck scenario.
The ultimate lame duck. Ramzan is sick, the heir is broken. The captains and the colonels and the warlords under him, they don't rally around the flag. They start looking at each other, and they start asking a very simple, very dangerous question.
Why not me?
Why not me? That is the most dangerous question in all of politics, and that leads us directly to the sharks that are now circling. Segment 3. Who are the people asking that question right now in Grozny?
The source uses a great euphemism for this phase. It calls it collegial Kadyrovism.
It's a wonderful term, isn't it? It sounds so polite, so cooperative. Oh, we are all colleagues here working for the common good.
But in reality...
In reality, it's a cover for a vicious, backstabbing power struggle. And the source identifies 3 key predators who are already maneuvering.
Okay, let's get into the profiles. First up, Magomed Daudov. His call sign is the Lord.
Lord. That tells you a lot right there. Daudov is the current prime minister of Chechnya, and critically, he's the constitutional successor. If Ramzan has a heart attack tonight and dies legally, the power transfers to Daudov.
And his background.
He's a former rebel who switched sides early on. He's known for being incredibly tough, even brutal. He is genuinely feared by the population, but he's also respected by the security forces, the Siloviki, because he's one of them.
And the source mentions something really interesting about his recent behavior, a change in his public persona.
Yes, he's undergoing a makeover, a complete rebranding. The camouflage fatigues are gone. He's only seen in sharp, well-tailored suits now. He's speaking more calmly in interviews. He's acting like a statesman, a manager.
What's the signal he's sending?
He's signaling directly to Moscow. The message is, look, I'm not a wild bandit. I'm a technocrat. The dynasty is falling apart. It's becoming a liability. Put me in charge. I can run this place for you without all the drama.
He's basically submitting his resume for the job of governor.
He is absolutely interviewing for the job. Then you have the second major player, Apty Alajinov.
A commander of the Ahmat Special Forces.
Right. And he is the public face of the Chechen war effort in Ukraine. He's on Russian federal TV constantly. He's the civilized face of the regime for the Russian audience.
What do you mean by civilized?
He speaks excellent, articulate Russian. He's calm. He's media savvy. He appeals to the Kremlin because he seems less wild than the others. He can talk geopolitics. He presents himself as a Russian patriot first and a Chechen second.
So he's the Moscow-friendly candidate.
He is. He's the one who can bridge the gap between Grozny and the Kremlin.
And the third player, Adam Dylimkhanov.
Dylimkhanov. He's Ramzan's cousin, his right-hand man in the Russian Duma. For a very long time, he was seen as the undisputed number two, the enforcer, the guy who handled the dirty work.
But the source suggests his star is fading.
His stock is crashing, according to this analysis. He's been overshadowed. Daudov is rising as the internal manager. Aldinov is rising as the external face. Dylimkhanov is getting squeezed out. And in a shark tank, if you stop swimming forward, you get eaten.
And hovering over all of this internal rivalry is the big one, the federal factor.
Yes. The simple, inescapable fact of the law.
Age.
Age. The law of the Russian Federation explicitly states that the head of a federal republic must be at least 30 years old.
Yeah.
Adam Kadyrov is 18.
Now, hold on. We all know that laws in Russia can be flexible.
Extremely flexible. If Vladimir Putin decides he wants the law to be different, the law will be different by lunchtime. They could certainly change it. The question is, would they? Would the Kremlin rewrite the Constitution for an 18-year-old who just lost his spleen, damaged his eye, and created a massive PR disaster?
It seems unlikely.
Very unlikely, because the Kremlin, above all else, values one thing: stability. They don't actually care about Ramzan Kadyrov's feelings or his family legacy. He is a tool for stability. If the tool breaks, or if his succession plan looks like it will cause chaos,
They will get a new tool.
they will back a steady hand. They will back a manager like Dauda who promises quiet, predictable control. They'll choose stability over dynasty every single time.
Which would, for all intents and purposes, be the end of the Kadyrov dynasty as a ruling power.
It would turn them into just another wealthy family, stripped of their private army and their political immunity. And for them, that is the ultimate nightmare. That's a fate worse than death.
Okay, now hold on. Because
Okay.
this is the point in the analysis where the source material takes a very sharp left turn. We've been talking about, local politics, clans, cars, spleens. But the document we have zooms way out. It goes to a global level.
It reframes everything.
It introduces a geopolitical theory that frames this entire accident not as an accident at all, but as a calculated move in a much, much bigger game. This is segment 4, the game of cousins.
And this is the part that I think demands a very open mind from the listener. The source operates within a specific and some would say unconventional theoretical framework. It refers to the global players as the gardeners.
The gardeners. It
Yeah.
sounds so benign, so peaceful.
It's anything but. The theory laid out in this document posits that the world, and specifically the Russian Federation, is managed by two competing yet related factions. It calls them the cousins. On one side you have London, on the other, the Americans.
Let's clarify this because it's important. When the source says London, it's not talking about the king or the prime minister in Downing Street.
No, this isn't about the visible government. It's referring to a deep state network of British-based financial and intelligence interests that, according to this very specific theory, has been effectively managing the Kremlin's administrative structure since 1917.
So in this model, the Russian oligarchs, the politicians,
Are essentially local branch managers for British and international capital. It's a provocative idea, to say the least.
it is. So within this model, what is Chechnya? Why would London care about this small mountainous republic?
In this framework, Chechnya is the perimeter guard.
The perimeter guard.
Think of it as a security feature for the entire Russian state project. London allows Chechnya to be a state within a state. They let it be lawless, archaic, violent, and scary. Why? Because it acts as a weapon to be used against the Russian population itself.
A weapon against the Russians, not an external enemy.
Exactly. The theory is if the managers in the Kremlin ever face a real, genuine popular uprising, if the Russian people themselves try to throw off this system of control, the Kremlin can unleash the Chechens. The Chechens have no cultural or ethnic sympathy for the Russians. They are seen as the perfect, ruthless suppression force.
So Chechnya is the Kremlin's pit bull. You keep it on a chain, you keep it hungry, you keep it mean, and that's how it protects the house from the people inside.
That is the theory in a nutshell. London needs the Kadyov regime to be strong and scary to maintain control over Russia. But the Americans, they see this entire game differently.
Okay, so what's the American play here, according to the source?
The American strategy, as the source describes it, is to burn the asset,
Berenek.
destroy it. They see Adam's accident and the resulting weakness of the air as a golden opportunity. If they can destabilize Chechnya, if they can shatter the Kadyov myth of invincibility, they don't just cause a local problem for Russia, they strip the Kremlin of its guard dog.
They open the perimeter.
They open a second front against Russia, forcing Moscow to divert troops, money, and attention away from Ukraine or other fronts. But here is where it gets really dark and conspiratorial. The source suggests that London might also be changing its calculus.
That London might also want to burn the asset.
Potentially. The document uses terms like pruning or burning surplus.
It's pruning, like you're cutting dead branches off a tree.
Exactly. The logic goes like this. If the Kadyov regime is becoming too independent, too demanding, or now too weak and unstable to be effective, then London might actually want a limited conflict.
Why would they want that?
Because a war is a fantastic way to dispose of surplus warriors. If your long-term goal is to transition Russia to a modern digital control grid, we're talking biometrics, QR codes, smart cities, total surveillance, you can't have these wild feudal warlords with private armies running around. It's inefficient. You need to sanitize the region.
So from a deeply cynical point of view, a war serves both of the cousins. The Americans get chaos and a second front, and London gets to clean house and install a more obedient technocrat.
That is the grim hypothesis presented in the document, and that leads us directly to the mechanics of how this war would actually start. This brings us to segment 5, the second front, and the Ukraine connection.
Right, because we can't ignore the war in Ukraine. It's the backdrop for absolutely everything. But the source suggests the situation there is about to change in a way that directly impacts Grozny.
The Furzin front scenario. We keep hearing rumors in the media about a Korea-style freeze in Ukraine, a ceasefire, a stalemate along the current lines. The source argues this isn't about achieving peace.
It's about logistics.
It's a logistical maneuver. If the U.S. and its allies agree to freeze the line in Ukraine, what happens to all of those resources? What happens to the thousands of trained proxy forces they've been funding?
They don't just pack up and go home.
They get redeployed. The source points specifically to the various Chechen battalions that have been fighting on the Ukrainian side.
Against Russia.
Against Russia and against the Kadyrovtsi. People like Akhmed Zakayev and his separate Special Purpose Battalion, or OBAN. These guys are not weekend warriors. They are battle-hardened. They have modern NATO training. They know how to use drones and encrypted comms. And they have a blood feud with Kadyrov that goes back 20 years.
And the source also mentions the Acherians.
Yes, the ideological battalions, the Sheikh Mansour and Dzhokhar Dudayev battalions. These aren't mercenaries. They are true believers in the cause of an independent Ichkeria. To them, Kadyrov is the ultimate traitor, a puppet of Moscow. If the Ukraine front freezes, they are immediately free to turn their attention and all of their new weapons and skills back toward the homeland.
The document also brings in two major regional powers, Turkey and Saudi Arabia. It seems like everyone wants a piece of this pie.
They're the logistical and ideological hubs. Turkey is the base of operations. It's where the sleepers are based. The document mentions the remnants of the Yamadayev clan, another powerful Chechen family that Kadyrov crushed and exiled. They're waiting there in Turkey for their chance to return.
And Saudi Arabia.
That's the religious angle. Kadyrov's power rests on his control of a specific state-sanctioned version of Sufi Islam. If the Saudis, as the custodians of Sunni orthodoxy, pull their support, if influential Salafi clerics start issuing fatwas that challenge Kadyrov's religious legitimacy, they strip away his spiritual authority, just as the car crash stripped away his physical authority.
So the nightmare scenario that's described here, It's not a repeat of the Chechen War of the 1990s, is it? We're not talking about columns of Russian tanks rolling into Grozny.
No, not at all. This is 21st century warfare. It's false flag operations. The source envisions a scenario where U.S.-supplied drones and satellite intel are used to launch pinprick attacks in the Chechen mountains, but the entire operation is framed in the media as a popular uprising.
The narrative would be the brave Chechen people are rising up against the broken tyrant and his disabled son.
Exactly. And that narrative is absolutely lethal for Vladimir Putin. The entire legitimacy of the current Russian regime, his two-decade rule, is built on one single sentence. I pacified Chechnya.
He ended the chaos.
He brought order. If Chechen coffins start coming home from a new civil war, if the region explodes into violence again, the Putin stability myth evaporates overnight.
And if that myth dies, the entire regime begins to show.
Sinks right down to its foundations.
But there's another group, a powerful one inside Russia, that might actually be cheering for this kind of collapse. Segment 6. The technocrats and the Great East.
This is a fascinating layer of internal Russian politics that the source delves into. It talks about a structure it calls the VVNR, the Great East of the Peoples of Russia. It describes a power structure where the real managers, the brains of the operation, are ethnic minority elites, specifically the Tatars and Bashkirs.
So we're talking about powerful figures like Elvira Nebulina at the central bank,
Right.
or Rustam Minnikhанov, the longtime head of Tatarstan.
Right, the technocrats. These are the people who run the Russian economy. They run the banking system, the digital infrastructure. They view the world through spreadsheets, efficiency metrics, and control systems.
And to them, the Kadyrov model.
Is an embarrassment. It's a relic. Feudalism, tribute payments, golden guns, private armies. It's messy, it's unpredictable, it's corrupt, it's obsolete.
It's analog in a digital world.
It is fundamentally analog in a world they want to make totally digital. They want a sanitized Russia. They want biometrics, a central bank digital currency, total financial transparency, a social credit score. A broken warrior prince like Adam Kadyrov is completely useless to them.
Worse than useless.
He's an obstacle. They won't want to keep funding this broken feudal project. In fact, the source suggests they might actively support a cleansing of the region to finally bring it into the modern digital fold. They don't want a warrior prince. They want a regional manager who answers his emails and uploads all the required data to the central server in Moscow.
So Adam has the Americans potentially working against him, the London faction considering a pruning, the internal rivals sharpening their knives, and the Moscow technocrats who see him as obsolete. But there is one more enemy, the oldest enemy.
The most dangerous one. Segment 7, the FSB's long game.
The Russian faction.
The ethnic Russian deep state. We have to remember the history here. The leadership of the FSB men like Bortnikov, the Patrushev clan, father and son, they are Russian nationalists at their core. And they have very, very long memories.
They remember the 1990s.
They remember the humiliation of losing the First Chechen War. They remember the Khasavyurt Accord, which was essentially a surrender. For 20 years, they have been forced to grit their teeth and watch the Kremlin send billions and billions of rubles in tribute to Kadyrov to keep the peace.
So they don't see him as an ally.
The source is clear on this. They view the Kadyrovs not as allies, but as bandits who have been holding Moscow hostage for 2 decades. There is a deep, simmering well of hatred there.
And so their strategy, now that the dynasty is weak?
The source calls it managed collapse. It's brilliant in its brutality. They won't assassinate Ramzan. That's too messy. It makes him a martyr. They won't invade directly. That's too costly and politically risky.
So what do?
They sit back and they let the system eat itself. They use information warfare. They are the most likely source of the leaks of the real medical data about Adam. They leak this Adam.pdf to humiliate the family and expose their weakness to all their rivals.
They pour gasoline on the fire.
And then, crucially, the source suggests they might quietly open the gate for the Achurians to come back in from Ukraine.
You mean they would let the rebels in? Their sworn enemies?
Why not? Let Akhmed Zakhaev and his drone operators cross the border. Let the Chechens fight the Chechens. Let the Kadyrovtsi and the Achurians grind each other down in a brutal, bloody civil war. It's mutually assured destruction for your 2 biggest headaches in the region.
And when both sides are exhausted and bleeding?
Then the federal forces, the Russian army and the FSB, sweep in. But this time, they don't negotiate. They don't offer any special status. They impose a governor general from Moscow. They fully and finally integrate Chechnya into the Russian legal space. No more exceptions.
The FSB finally wins the war that they lost 30 years ago.
They achieve their ultimate goal. Total integration, total control. It's a ruthless, patient calculus.
It is. It implies they are willing to tolerate a staggering amount of bloodshed to get what they want.
And if history has taught us anything, it's that the Russian state is rarely shy about spilling blood to restore what it sees as order.
So let's bring it all back home. The conclusion, the so what.
Mm-hmm.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from a spleen in a jar in a Moscow hospital to a global conspiracy theory involving gardeners. What is the single biggest takeaway for you, for the listener?